We'll call the meeting to order for USD 263, April 13th, 2021, 5:30 p.m. Next up will be 2.0, entertain a motion to approve the agenda. Motion by Chris, entertain a second. Second by Crystal. Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Next up will be 3.1, completion of the requested hearing started April 12, 2021 at 6:15 p.m. Dr. Inslee.
Yes, thank you. First of all, thank you for allowing us to reconvene, reschedule, and the flexibility around that and the schedules of the many different parties involved here. I will once again start this or begin this hearing again where we left off. I will need to read through once again some procedural stuff and swear in witnesses again, so just a heads up there. Just so you're aware, this is being recorded, and the audio recording will be kept on file at District's Administrative Office at 628 East Mulvane Street, Mulvane, Kansas. Today is the 13th day of April 2021. The time is 5:31. We are here to complete a hearing requested by Ms. Lara Payton, representing others. This is a quasi-judicial hearing. In accordance with the state statute and board policy, all pertinent information should be brought to the attention of the board for it to have complete information before reaching a decision. The hearing committee consists of the USD 263 Board of Education members. My name is Dr. Jay Inslee, and I'm the superintendent appointed to facilitate the efficient adjudication of the hearing. I will be leading us through the hearing procedure this evening. We have the following Board of Education members with us today: Mr. Chris Hershey, Mr. Fred Hershey, Ms. Crystal Smith, Mr. Steve Fry, and Mr. Jeff Ellis. Representing USD 263 is Dr. Raquel Greer and Mr. Brad Canfield. The complainants will be represented by those who are going to be speaking or presenting tonight. We'll have you guys sworn in here in just a second. So, I, as hearing officer, will swear in the witnesses who wish to present evidence or testimony. This will include those who will be presenting on the complainant's behalf and those representing USD 263 for this hearing. So at this time, those that will be presenting and providing testimony, if you'll raise your right hand. Thank you. Very good. Do you solemnly swear to affirm that the testimony you present in this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Okay. And before we present, if you don't mind restating your name, and that way we can get that on record. So, thank you. This hearing will be conducted as an informal hearing, and strict rules of evidence will not apply. However, testimony received must be relevant. Parties' representation may take such objections to testimony or documentation as they see fit, and I, as hearing officer, will consider such objections. The hearing will be conducted in an orderly manner. Each side will have an opportunity to present its witness and documentation in support of its position, as well as be able to cross-examine the other party. So once again, there will be chances and opportunities to cross-examine or question after each party is done with their presenting their evidence. So once again, in continuation at this time, we are currently in the presentation of the complainant's case phase, and the complainants will now complete their presentation of evidence and testimony. So Ms. Payton, and you and or your witness can at this time present or complete your information. Thank you. I will mute.
All right, I was at this, my name is Richard Renz. I'll just to remind you, I finished this last night. I kind of went through real fast. For the top two things, I know I've said these multiple times, but the risk of complication for healthy children is higher for the flu compared to COVID-19, and teaching staff have been vaccinated. The reason why I keep saying this, these are key points that make all of this possible. We're at the point now where the emotional, social, educational, physical harm brought on by the response is greater than the potential for exposure to the virus, at least in the minds of a lot of parents. You may not agree with your kid, but I think this is a very reasonable position to take. This is why they want the freedom to decide whether or not they wear masks or not. Okay. The quarantine requirements are not a requirement. Contact tracing and quarantines are the responsibility of the health department. I encourage you to let them do that. And don't let the KDHE and the South Department bully the school district into doing their work for them. We brought another couple more items for the record, and we've got copies for everybody. Just yesterday, Halstead Bentley released their mask mandate, or removed it at the recommendation of their superintendent. And then I've got a chart here as far as the number of cases per day. Another way of showing the data of how it's been. When it was way up at 322 a day, now we're down to around 25, so it's flattened off. It's been 2 weeks since Sedgwick County eliminated their mask mandate. There's not been a spike like a lot of people are concerned about. It just we're in that kind of maintain mode. That's another positive sign that I would ask you to take into consideration. And that's all I have.
Hi, I'm Josie Jacobs, and I have 4 kids in 4 school buildings here. So one of the big things is, I'm going to keep it very brief. I'm prior military, so we like short and sweet. So I know you want to go home to your families. So with COVID, it's been around obviously for over a year. And some of the big things I want to ask is, I ask all of you here this evening, since opening the doors to our school full-time, to full-time classes, how many actually confirmed cases of COVID have we had that were not false positives? Or, you know, oh, they were in the vicinity of somebody. How many actual positive cases have there been this past year and currently? Second, how many teachers actually take off their masks throughout the school day when other teachers are around but no students? And the reason I present this is because I know if they say they don't, that would be a lie, because we all would take it off. Talk to somebody near us, be around, even if like we're by ourselves and wanting to eat, we're taking it off. We're literally going into outside of school. You know, we have our kids go from the pickup line or drop off line, and we drop them off, and now we're not even doing fever checks. So that's been taken off. So everyone takes off their masks to talk to each other or to eat or just to get fresh air. So they're on, they're off, they're on, they're off. And we're constantly breathing the same air whether we wear a mask or whether we don't. How many people in this room specifically, let alone in our school district, have done the following? Place their masks in a purse, on their desk, or inside their desks. Do you know how much stuff is inside of a desk? Or all the germs that are on top of it? All in your pockets. How many have gotten in a vehicle and gone from school building to school building to school building, and they're just, whether you're removing your mask or constantly wearing your mask, you're transporting yourself into a new building with that same mask. You toss them in your vehicle. You're just like, I'm done for the day. So you just toss them in the vehicle. Or you hang them from your rear view mirror for display to use for the very next day. And the point of this is just to put the exact same mask back on. That leads to contamination because you're constantly putting it on, you're taking it off, you're always touching it. You're around other people, whether you're putting it on, taking it off. You're still breathing the same air that if we're not wearing a mask or you're wearing a mask. And then each and every one of these instances has a hand in spreading bacteria and germs regardless of whom we are or where we have been or any possible precautions we have attempted to conduct. So you can do everything to your utmost ability, but you still can spread, just like the flu, the common cold, you can still spread that bacteria. And I ask, how many actually have washed your masks? According to the CDC guidelines, it's very big into, oh, the CDC's putting out this, the CDC just put this out. But how many have actually read the guideline from the CDC website personally on specifics of how to wash, sanitize, and disinfect your mask? And that is very crucial because just washing something does not get rid of a virus. Just sanitizing something does not get rid of a virus. You have to take disinfecting measures in order to kill a virus. And no, you won't kill a virus 100% of the time. And as well as an actual guideline pushed out by the USDA for sanitation, food, and distribution. I bring up the USDA sanitation and food, and I realize the school district has been doing an amazing job with that. But again, with the mask mandate, how many people are wearing the same mask again, and they're going through the lines and getting the food? The same thing. Sure, one may be thinking that if we lift the mask mandate, that it would potentially result in COVID-19 spread and more quarantines. But how is it possible that since the state of Texas, Mississippi, and Florida have opened up their state with no requirement for mask mandate, and just recently the state of Arkansas, the governor, and I have the name, it is Governor Hutchinson, just released last month a no mask mandate, and they are right across our border. And they have had no numbers on the rise since lifting the mask mandates in all of those states. Even Dr., and I may pronounce this wrong, Fauci, F-A-U-C-H, the expert on COVID, is questioning this now. He is questioning his own standards and guidelines and procedures. So what I ask is, whenever he's speaking, and he's the one that said wearing 2 masks, possibly 3, are better than wearing 1. But yet he is turning around and saying, oh, I don't really know what I'm saying. So we're left like, what do we do? He also just stated today that they will be pausing the distribution of the Johnson & Johnson COVID vaccine due to the amount of deaths with blood clots. It is pausing. How many people have felt a little under the weather but still went to school, especially with the not taking temperatures at drop-offs anymore? And they also wore their masks, the same mask they wore the day before and the day before that and before that, spreading the bacteria and germs continuously because they're not washing, they're not sanitizing, and they're not disinfecting the same mask they're wearing every single day, whether they're playing sports, whether they're just attending school, whether they're going outside to play. It's the same exact thing. The only true way to prevent the only true way to prevent the spread of COVID is to use common sense. Give it back to the people. We have common sense. Each and every one of us in this room has common sense to take the procedures by the guidance of the CDC, as well as to know our own bodies. If you're sick or feeling ill, stay home. Allow the decision to wear masks or not to wear masks be at the discretion of their parents, guardians, and caregivers.
You can use this one if you want. Oh, no, you're fine. Let me mute this. Wherever we are.
Okay, I'm Lara Payton. We were here last night. I wanted to speak today as a mom and speaking for many concerned people in our community, in our district. I'm extremely concerned for staff and kids who are being forced to block their breathing for extended periods of time. These issues are personal, private, and belong to individuals and families. I tried, but was unable to get a precise accounting from the district of exactly what the positive numbers are, coronavirus numbers are, throughout historical numbers. I did find from the information that I got that in January there were 45 positive cases. That we were masking at that time. So we had been masking for a while. So I'm not seeing the masking, the quarantining, I'm not seeing them working if we hit a peak when we were months into masking. Our children have changed during this forced masking. I will read you a list of things reported from children and parents in this district. Our children have struggled with facial rashes because of these masks. Our children have experienced increases in illness because of these masks. Our children have experienced chest pain and coughs from wearing masks. Our children have come home exhausted from wearing masks for so many long hours. Our children have suffered headaches and lightheadedness that they don't even understand from wearing these masks. Our children have less focus and concentration because of these masks. Our children are speaking less because of these masks. Our children cannot hear others because voices are muffled from the masks. Our children have claustrophobia and anxiety they have never before experienced and do not understand because of these masks. Our children have struggled to recognize people they usually would run to with hugs, simply because they don't recognize them, the person behind the mask. I've experienced that a lot personally. So, our children have no longer see smiles of joy. Our children no longer see the social cues they so desperately need in their development. Our children are playing at recess and other times outside when they need fresh air in masks. Our children, this astounds me, our children are singing in masks. That doesn't make sense to me. There are more, but we're kind of limited in time. I would like to add here that we are not wearing masks as intended by these restrictive policies that are in place currently. Many have told me that people take any opportunity throughout the school day to remove their masks, hoping not to be noticed. I have witnessed large groups of students directly outside school doors, congregating, playing, socializing, jumping on one another, all kinds of things that kids normally would do. They're doing it without masks. They're doing it for long periods of time. I can hear them over a block away. They're playing so much outside I'm talking middle school, that type of thing. And of course, kids get together outside of school to do other activities. None of these things actually bother me though. I don't have a problem with the kids playing. They're kids. What is a problem is the fact that they can then dig a mask out of their pocket or their grungy backpack, and then they cover their face with it. And somehow this magically negates what happened just mere moments before. Another thing, on February 25th, there was a video that Superintendent Inslee put out, and he said temp checks were removed, temp checks at the door were removed beginning March 1st because, quote, we found that there are just too many variables to keep this as a consistent process, unquote. And I would submit that masks are a very inconsistent process with a lot of variables. So I don't understand the reasoning in keeping them when we've removed the temp checks because of their inconsistency, because of the variables that go along with it. I don't understand it. I know I spoke about this last night in the regular Board of Education meeting, but I wanted this to be added to the record. There are two test cases, I would say, that have happened recently. Renwick School District, a district that is very similar to ours in size, made mask wearing less restrictive. In other words, masking is recommended or encouraged, but not required. Everybody gets a choice. They get to decide if it's the thing that they want to do for their bodies. A A school board member of Renwick Schools told me, quote, "We were 10 days from having our staff totally covered by the second shot. That means 2 weeks after their second shot," unquote. And, quote, "Parents and students were all ready for the change. We still had about 15% of our high school students continue to wear masks," unquote. Their COVID numbers have remained consistent since using these less restrictive policies. So it's been a success in Renwick, very similar to our district. Another school district did the same. St. John Hudson School District. It is smaller, I will admit, but they did the same thing. Last week, the board chose to make mask wearing less restrictive. Students and staff were encouraged but not forced to wear masks. A school board member there told me yesterday, quote, "We went optional last week and I've never had so many parents tell me thank you over a school issue. I've had 0 complaints about our policy. Prom went well." They held prom. "Prom went well with just a few in the crowd wearing a mask," unquote. I know our kids would love to have prom. They would love to have graduation. I know we can do it without a mask. Other districts are doing these things. In conclusion, if you follow this law, Senate Bill 40, you will remove mask mandates and quarantining requirements and allow those in our district to make their own health choices. Putting a mask on healthy people, thus restricting their breathing, is not the least restrictive policy. Thank you for your time.
Okay, so today I did a lot of research very quickly in a short amount of time, and added to. Oh, it's okay. I can talk loud. I use my voice. Okay, thank you. So in a short amount of time, I did a lot of research, and to add to the school districts, and again, this is a smaller school. It is in Pawnee County, but I talked to a lot of school districts today, and Pawnee County, and I apologize if I say this wrong, I think it's Leonard Public School, and what is it? Lawrence, yeah, what she said, in Pawnee County, and they've actually lifted the mandate last month, and they are doing just fine. And they have a little bit lower numbers than we have, because I actually talked to every school district, either superintendent or their assistant, and got the numbers for each and every school building of their enrollment. And so our numbers are a little bit higher for student enrollment. However, we also have lower cases of COVID than they have, and they also have lifted their mandates. And one of the biggest things that I'm asking too is, please take the time to do what I did in about 4 hours. Call these school districts that have lifted the mandate and ask them, what are you doing? Because obviously they're doing something we're not, and it's going very well for them. And I would just like to see how it would work for our school district, for our children. And then on top of that, a lot of what I found out, even from school districts like Andover and Rose Hill, and just different school districts even outside of our county, is that they're waiting for another school district to take initiative. So that's what I'm asking you guys, is take the extra step. Do the research. Contact these school districts just like I did today. It literally took me less than 4 hours. Literally, I was on the phone with her back and forth. I did this research. It's not difficult. Just call around. Talk to the superintendents like I did. Talk to the assistants. Get the numbers and make your judgments from there. Because we know it's possible to lift the mandate and then make it where if parents want their kids to wear the mask to sports or to class, they can. If they don't, then they don't. And I think that would be a fair alternative, is to contact these different school districts. And again, a lot of the ones even outside of our district, they're looking for somebody in a different district to take the initiative. Just like we're looking at Pawnee County, we're looking at Arkansas, Texas. Somebody in our state needs to take the initiative, and why will it not be our school building? Thank you. Like, no, not me. Not it.
Board of Education. Tom, you may cross-examine the witnesses. All right, at this time, by the presentation of the district's case, Dr. Greer, Mr. Canfield, you may present your information away. I'm going to unmute. So just for the record, there was an offer for the district representatives to cross-examine witnesses, which was denied. The Board of Education also had a chance to cross-examine the witnesses, which was also fine. We are now at the presentation of the district's case for Dr. Greer and Mr. Canfield. Sorry, I had to kind of catch myself.
I gotta find out where it's present. There you go. There you go. I didn't do that. Okay, whatever works for you. That's what I do. All right, thank you.
Yeah, I just hit the end. Yes. Yes. I'm also going to speak up. I can't talk louder. But just want to say thank you for the opportunity to bring district perspective to some of the decisions that I've made this year. We know this is a divisive issue. Lots of varying opinions on either side. We've seen that in our data, and we appreciate the time that people take and the passion for our children here in Mulvane. We truly care. This is just an opportunity for us to say, from a perspective of where have we been and how did we get here, and help the board then make the decision they need to make. So we started this process with a task force. This task force consists of teachers, some people, parents, nurses, administrators. We did have Dr. Brian Comer join us for several discussions and consulted with parent and staff surveys when making these difficult decisions through this process. This task force basically in the beginning tried to identify two priorities for our district. Number one, we wanted to keep the health and safety of students, staff, and our community at the forefront. And then number two, we wanted our students to be able to attend school in person as much as possible. So keeping these things at the forefront is what drove all of the learning mode decisions and options that were created by that task force. We also have board policy in JGCC regarding communicable disease. This just kind of outlines that the decisions are made by our administration and considers, receiving input from physicians, public health personnel, students, parents, and guardians. We also have a little spiel in our handbook that the board has adopted about COVID-19 being a communicable disease. And then the last piece that kind of we needed to visit is the Kansas State statute, which basically says that the school nurse must notify the health department on this notifiable disease. Speaking with our school nurses, they did feel very strongly that COVID-19 fell under that category. And so the option to call the health department is simply not on the table. We must contact them and notify them. Here is our current numbers. Hopefully this answers one of the questions from earlier. I just talked with a school nurse today. We pulled these. So total, I don't know if you can see because of the computer there. Brad, can you move the little screen? You just kind of grab it and slide it. Oh. Sorry. Yeah, there. Okay, now you can see the totals you were asking about. So this is comprehensive from September 1 when we started counting through today. Positive cases, student positives 93, staff positives 58. So this is just to kind of answer that question we thought might be coming. There are two categories, and this is kind of an attempt to answer the questions about quarantine. There's two categories, high risk and low risk. Here's the specific information. So when a nurse contacts the health department and they contact trace and determine quarantine, they do look at the status of whether you're high risk or low risk. High risk, you can see, is anything unmasked, especially when not physically distanced, consuming food or drink, activities with physical exertion, playing woodwind instruments, singing, shouting, and then playground if it's longer than 10 minutes. A low-risk contact is where all of those mitigation measures have been adhered to, including wearing masks, washing hands, and remaining socially distanced to the great extent possible. Here is just a data projection made by our high school nurse to kind of answer the question about, since returning to school full-time on 3/21, what have our positive cases looked like and how have the quarantines been affected? So at the high school, we've had 7 positive cases since returning after spring break. Of those 7 positive cases, 65 were low-risk contacts and 35 were deemed high risk. And those came from people eating lunch around the positive cases, track, practice, and singing in choir. So all those activities where high risk comes into play. So if we did not have a mask mandate, we would have been sending 99 kids home to quarantine instead of 34.
It's about 20% of the student body at high school.
So Mr. Canfield's, I don't know, he's muted, so that's about 20% of our high school. So we did do a little bit of research with the American Academy of Pediatrics for you. You can see there, they urge face coverings for those with ages 2 and up, with a rare exception. Here's the updated recommendation while you're in class. That's what qualifies that as a low-risk contact. And that was on March 19, so we made those adjustments after spring break. And then here's a link to an article about mask safety. So again, focusing on those district priorities, we all want health and safety for our students, staff, and community, and we all want our kids in school as much as possible. So in closing, just our statements here, we really feel like the partnership with Sedgwick County Health Department professionals does help us make best decisions for health and safety. We don't feel bullied by them. We do consult with Dr. Comer, staff, and parents. We're trying to implement the least restrictive COVID precautions that are relevant in our community and trying to be responsive to that. And then we do feel like the COVID precautions are deemed safe and effective by the American Academy of Pediatrics. And we're really striving to maintain a political neutrality when making these difficult decisions. We just started looking at the medical recommendations and trying to follow the best we can. So, and that's it. Mm-hmm.
At this time, plaintiffs may cross-examine the witnesses.
At this time, the complainants may cross-examine the witnesses. Yeah.
Can I just ask the questions?
Well, let's.
I think you have to come to be recorded, don't you?
Yeah, we need it to be recorded, so we'll have you maybe use that one there, Mr. Canfield, if you can.
I'll stand in one.
Okay.
That's right.
Okay, I have a question. On the high risk, low risk sheet, is there any time factor play into that? Like, does it have to be a contact for 10 minutes or longer?
I do believe it says, does it say something on that slide, 10 minutes or longer? I apologize, I don't have it right in front of me. In the past, it has been exposure for 10 minutes or longer that I know of.
Well, I know that's what it's supposed to be. I'm trying to ask, are they actually doing that? Is the health department doing that? I've been told that they're quarantining people who did this for even short periods of time.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I'm just trying to clarify, to know if you know the answer to that.
I would think our nurses would say, as they're following the close contacts, they're looking at that as a parameter before they even put the name down.
Okay, does the district acknowledge that this high risk, low risk, which was created by, well, first, will I be able to, does the district recommend or acknowledge that high risk, low-risk protocol, which was originally put out by the health department, is no longer mandatory under SB40.
Under SB40, I don't know that.
Are you aware of the email from Sedgwick County that I've supplied to everybody in which they said, their attorney said it is no longer mandatory?
I
Okay.
don't know if you're asking me personally, so I'm presenting the protocols that we follow based on all the things that
I
I
know that.
listed. Sorry.
That's why I'm
The
asking you.
email that you sent, I'm not
Anyway,
sure.
okay.
Okay.
And does the district acknowledge that the school, I mean, you listed those laws, but the school is not required to do the contract tracing. You are required to notify them of a positive case. That I will acknowledge, but you're not required to do all this other stuff. That's actually their job.
Okay, and I did speak with the nurse about that, since you've mentioned that before, because I was kind of curious about that. And so our nurses said that, you know, again, they call Sedgwick County, right, and say we have a positive case, and then Sedgwick County actually just helps advise them for those quarantines. So they're actually just talking with them about the situation, but they're actually the ones who are saying, hey, you need to quarantine. So they're kind of acting as our school nurses are acting as a liaison there to contact those. We feel like that's a good partnership, I guess, and the reason why we maintain that communication is just in the health and safety, you know, aspect of our schools. So.
Well, but you do realize that that's their job to do. The health department, they are by law required to do that. That's not required by statute for you to do it.
Right, we just notify, but then we choose to work with them just
So
in the health and safety interests of our students.
If somebody has been vaccinated or has had the disease, are they still quarantined?
That I do not know.
If they're vaccinated or had
No, they're not.
the disease, they still have to wear a mask?
Yes, we ask them to wear a mask.
I just have a little bit of a rebuttal, but I'm done with the question.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll try my best.
Raquel.
I'm not a medical professional.
Well, you gave testimony, so I think that's why we're kind of questioning you on it. So on one of the slides, there were district priorities, and it listed number one, the health and safety of students, staff, and community.
Mhm.
And so I know you're thinking of that in the spreading of the virus, but we're also jeopardizing the health of all of the people who are having to wear masks. I went through a long list of effects that we're seeing on our children and adults too. And so I'm wondering how you reconcile those. There's a small number, relatively small number of people who are getting the virus, but everybody is wearing a mask.
So I think the best answer to that might be that the recommendation is for all people in the classrooms to wear a mask so that we can, you know, abide by those low risk quarantines. For the social, emotional, and, you know, wellness aspect, we've tried to do mask breaks. We've tried to do daily check-ins with SEL. We've tried to make sure kids are still getting the opportunity to be in school instead of remote. That was kind of our, that's better than being at home. So we're just kind of doing the best we can to mitigate those other concerns as they arise.
Okay. But do you recognize that the children who are masking are still coming home with physical things that are happening to them? Not necessarily only social, emotional, but also there are physical things that are happening. The coughing, the chest pain. I mean, there was quite an extensive list of things that parents are seeing.
I know that any school building, when presented a note from a medical doctor, I know we have had a couple of those I can think of offhand that they presented saying, this is causing me difficulty, my doctor says I can't wear one, and we have to honor medical notes. So I don't think it's our job to judge those medical concerns. We just try to follow physician's recommendations. So,
okay. All right. Okay.
I have one other question. We've talked about a lot of data that I have argued, shows us that we can do this. So my question is for the district, if now is not the time, if the data right now is not the time, what is the objective criteria for which you will say, all right, now we don't have to do it?
In the past, for the task force, when we had these discussions, we've always kind of referred back to what is recommended by medical professionals, CDC, Sedgwick County Health. I know you guys kind of brought that up. So, and now with this new piece, we're presenting information to our local officials, and so.
But is there any objective criteria that you have or they've given to you, say, all right, when we accomplish, because in our mind, we've been given objectives for all these criteria, so we got to do these things and then we're going to remove this stuff. See, so we think we're there. So if that's not the case, what is the objective criteria that they are using to tell you, you know, that it's okay?
So, you know, kind of the data we presented about the quarantines, our number one objective is number two objective, trying to keep kids in school as long as possible, right? And so if we would have had to quarantine 99 students because they weren't wearing masks, we would rather see the mask there so more students can stay in school rather than be kicked out, right, on quarantine. So I think, you know, we've got to follow procedures that allow kids to stay in school. So as long as those are there.
But as I've said, those procedures are not required. You're self-imposing those quarantines. They're not. So you didn't really have to.
Sedgwick County Health, so we have to call them, if I understand it correctly.
That's correct.
The school nurse has to call, so they are in communication, but Sedgwick County still issues those quarantines.
Okay, they've not issued any quarantines. Right now, the only way they can issue a quarantine is by a specific written quarantine to a specific individual. Okay, I saw one of those letters. They recommended or advised that they stay home. That's not a quarantine. But what I'm saying is, so your argument is, I mean, the argument you're making then is then we're going to do this forever because there'll always be this possibility.
I don't know that that's our objective, to do this forever.
Well, I'm not saying it's your objective,
Okay.
but if we follow what they say, that logic, that as long as there are people having it, then we're going to keep doing it because they haven't. So I've heard this in other school districts too, and KDHE and Sedgwick County are saying here, this is what we have to, we can still, they're kind of playing word games and making it sound like you have to do the quarantine, and they'll list these statutes, and it's intimidating to school board members, but that's why I printed them off, they're part of the record. It's all about them doing it, okay? And you wouldn't quarantine all these kids if it was the flu, would you?
I can't answer. I mean, we're following what we think is the guidelines, so I
have you
apologize.
quarantined any kids with the flu in the past like this? The answer is no, but those laws pre-exist this and would apply to that same case. And if the flu is more harmful to our kids, as the CDC says, we're making the argument that you shouldn't be self-imposing those. Just report it and move on and let the health department determine what they want to do. And I bet you have I bet you have virtually zero quarantine, except for the people who test positive. Obviously, they shouldn't test, okay? So when you say we have to do that, that's where I differ, because maybe in the past they were making you do it, and because there were health orders and stuff, they could force you to do it, okay? But now they can't. It's their responsibility. They have lots of staff, okay? But remember, I mean, there's a credibility. I know how public health officials think and how they operate. I've worked with them, okay? And they just think differently. They're the same people. I have people coming in my office who've had the vaccine. Well, they've had the disease, they've had the vaccine, and still they're being told to wear a mask. These are the same people. They have political motivations. I don't think you do, but
I think you may be entering a rebuttal.
Rebuttal, okay, good enough.
This is cross-examination.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other cross-examination?
I've something.
So the biggest thing is how many kids that were actually in close contact have actually calmed down with COVID. Because I know my son Christian's in the high school, and I've had to call Laura Canfield from the nurse's office. I'm like, is he quarantined for 7 days, 14 days? And I get a call. Oh, he's been out of state, gone to Pennsylvania and Florida and back and forth. And so it seems like the CDC just kind of changes like randomly, and they'll say 7 days, 14 days. But how many of these kids actually have come down with COVID? And this was not my question; it came from another party.
Can I answer that
but,
first one first?
Yeah.
Okay, because it helps me remember. So I do know when speaking with Mrs. Canfield about the numbers since 3/21 that at least one of the quarantined students had a positive case, and so she felt like it was good that they weren't intermixed again, and causing more.
Well, and I guess the question is, how many people within the Mulvane community actually have realistic positive cases, not false negatives? And the reason I bring this up is because on a personal level, I literally have dealt with 8 deaths from August of 2020 till just last week, and not one of them was COVID related. So, and what we're fighting now on a personal level as a family is one of those relatives, a hospital deemed they died of COVID, but they died of a heart attack. So I personally, I just question who actually has COVID, who has false positives, and who's in close contact. And so it's been proven over and over again that whether you wear a mask or whether you don't, you're either going to get COVID or you don't. The same as the flu, the same as H1N1 back in the day. Showing my age there. But, whether it's the influenza, and they've proven that a lot of cases with COVID, if they truly died from COVID, they ended up, their immune system did not fight it off. So it's an individual's immune system, your healthiness. How do you stay active on your own pace or by yourself? That is on a personal level, because the CDC has...
I think you're getting to rebuttal.
Oh, okay.
So if you have any other questions...
Oh, no. Okay. Okay.
Okay. Did you have another question? No.
No, I was just
All
going
right.
to say something.
Okay.
We'll get into that.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Yeah, thank you.
Board of Education, do you have any?
From the Board of Education, do you have any questions or cross-examination for the witnesses from the district representatives? Decline? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Now is the time for a rebuttal of a representative for the complainants.
All right.
So, really quickly, so we got to the crux of the matter right now. I think we've all acknowledged that the data that we presented here is so much improved that, it doesn't warrant continuing to do this. The question is about quarantine and whether or not, we're doing it right if we need to be doing it. And I would argue there are some people in public health and the health department, Katie, you just can't let this go, okay? They're kind of dragging it out and moving the goalposts, okay? I'll point out there are school districts that are going ahead and doing this, and they're not having to do all this stuff, okay? And they're operating, they just had a prom, okay? And they're doing all this stuff. So I think you need to take a look and say, all right, enough's enough. You had us do this for a year. Now we're getting kind of outside of something this really doesn't make sense, okay? If there's a positive contact or positive test, you don't let them come to school. If you want to send an email to the parents and say, hey, your student may have been in contact with or exposed to somebody who had it, that's it. Let the health department do their job. Let the parents do their job. Tell them to monitor systems. I think that's what we did at the very beginning. We told people, there was a contact, and monitor your systems and go on. That's what we've done in the medical community the whole time, okay? So I think at some point you got to say, all right, health department, I hear what you're saying. We have all these other issues. You just don't have to quarantine all those asymptomatic contacts who are kids, less likely to get it, and if they do get it, it's less harmful than the flu. So that's where you guys are going to come together and say, all right, we're going to have some common sense here, because sometimes governments don't have the most common sense. Trust me, I've been there. Okay? You guys at the lower level, you know what's going on, you hear what's going on here, and I think you can do this and we'll be fine, just like all the other schools have been able to do.
Okay, any other rebuttals on the Complaints? Okay, Ms. Jacobs.
I think it's a rebuttal anyway. Okay, so going over what I was speaking about is, I mean, for the longest time, the CDC itself, health officials, science experts from around the world have constantly said for over a year that majority of deaths from actual positive cases of COVID, true COVID, was due to the lack of immune system and ill health. There is more deaths caused by heart disease, obesity is a #1 cause, and cancer. They all have higher risk of death right now than COVID. Whether you have the vaccine, whether you wear a mask, whether you don't wear a mask, or you don't have the vaccine. The CDC's already put that out. So have scientists and health officials. So wearing a mask or not wearing a mask, again, you're either going to get it or you're not. It's like the flu or influenza. You're either going to get it or you're not. You can get the flu shot and immediately you can get sick the next day or within hours of getting it. If you don't get the shot, you can be just fine. It all depends on an individual's independent immune system. How healthy is that particular individual? How are you eating? How are you exercising? What is your fitness? Maybe we should actually be addressing more of fitness with our kids throughout the school day without a mask to help build up their immune system, especially with the 8 to 9 hour days of wearing a mask. Because at some point, just like any other virus, we are so over sanitizing our children that at some point they will not have an immune system to protect. And the 19 on COVID is not 2019. It's the strand. And at some point, these strands, it's going to become COVID-20, COVID-21, COVID-22. COVID's been around for centuries. It's not going away. We can't just make it disappear overnight. However, we can, as we are doing these precautions, you can tell the kids about staying fit, and even like some of the parents and stuff putting out health issues or health standards and say, okay, we know there's an underlying issue, and that is the obesity and everything else I just mentioned. So I think we need to bring that forth. And then the other thing that I hope that you guys take from this is please do the work behind it by calling other school districts who have lifted their mandates already and they have been fined since last month. And also talk to other school districts in general, from superintendents to whoever you need to talk to on their school boards. Because just from speaking to them for 4 hours of research today and talking to them over the phone, a lot of them are just waiting for school districts to step up and change what they're doing with the mask mandate. I have talked to so many school board members today and superintendents. It's not that hard. So all I ask is, when you leave today, if anything, please do the extra work. And I know it's a lot of time. We all have families. I know I have 4 kids. I've got scouts, cubs, sports. So it's not difficult to do some extra research and call around to just find out what they're doing with their standards. Because obviously they're doing just fine. And we are doing just fine here in Mulvane too. So that's what I had to say. Thank you.
Any other rebuttals from the complainants? Okay. Any rebuttals from the district at this time? All right. At this point, we have summations by complainant and school districts. So, Ms. Payton, do you wish to make any closing statements?
I just want to say that I really appreciate your attention, like a lot. I appreciate all the parents who've been willing to come speak. There's a lot of us that you don't see, We live streamed it to a large group of people last night, so that people who may not have felt comfortable stepping forward could watch what was going on live. Mr. Renzaw, I appreciate you being here. Your willingness to come down and help our community and provide a lot of facts, a lot of information. It's been very generous of you to give your time and talents to us, so I really appreciate that. We have provided a lot of information. I don't know if you guys have been able to read the information that we've provided. For the record, there's been a lot of documentation. It sounded like maybe Mrs. Greer hasn't been able to see the letter from the health department official saying that we are not required to do the quarantining that we are doing currently. So I hope you guys will read all of the information. There was a lot of good information. We put a lot of time and effort into this. And I think when you look at the facts and you look at the record, that you will see that these are not the least restrictive policies that we currently have in place. I ask you to reconsider your continued requiring of all of the onerous restrictions you've mandated in the schools of Mulvane. Please be brave, please be bold, and do the right thing for our district, especially for our children. As we have for all of our lives, minus this school year, please allow us to make decisions and to choose for ourselves and our families how we will manage our own health. We know to stay home when we're sick. With respect, I ask you, please stop covering our faces. Please stop the harm these policies are causing, because this is causing much more harm than good at this point. These very restrictive policies should be by choice. That's how we make them less restrictive, as we choose for ourselves. It shouldn't be done by force. Thank you so much for your consideration.
Thank you. Any closing statements from the school district representatives? Okay. None at this time.
It is now 6:27 p.m.
It is now 6:27 p.m. The Board of Education will deliberate the evidence it has heard and issue a decision. The board may choose to, 1, take no action, upholding the action, order, or policy, or 2, modify the action, order, or policy, or 3, revoke the action, order, or policy. The board will issue a decision within 7 days after the hearing is concluded. The hearing now is adjourned, and the meeting and/or announced decision made will be done within 7 days. And that is the conclusion of the hearing.
Got a motion by Steve, a second by Crystal to adjourn. All in favor? Opposed? Okay. Thank you, everybody.